is your body. That drum is your heartbeat. And your God is the glory of Rome. Praise for impact!
How long were you a slave?
5 years.
What is your name?
Ben-Hur. My family was one of the most respected in Jerusalem. Welcome home.
Please, I need you to tell me who our enemies are.
Masala, I won't name names until we were betrayed by my own brother.
Masala! You know we've done nothing wrong. Rome's calling for blood. Crucify them.
No!
The world you live in is Rome's. Their laws, their power.
I won't let Masala go unpunished for what he's done to us. Our mother and sister. Was it a quick death?
Go, go, go!
Coward!
My family, they deserve justice for what's happened to them.
There is a way. In the arena, there is no law. Racing is a blood sport. If you lose, you die. If your brother is the pride of Rome, defeat him and you'll defeat an empire. Then you will have your vengeance.
You have a voice. People would follow you. I would follow you.
Go, go, go!
Should have stayed away.
You should have killed me.
I will.
Remember, first to finish,
Last to die.
Are we having fun now, brother? Stand and fight! Stand up now!
Thank you.
This is not even hyperbole to say that I think you're one of the nicest guests we've ever had.
Oh, really?
Really?
That's so nice.
Starring in the greatest story ever told.
Ah, yeah, quite a big one, huh?
Quite daunting. How did you take this on?
Well, I saw the '59 version when I was a kid. I think it was one of the first films I ever, watched.
Wait, we have to tell these guys it was with Charlton Heston.
Yeah, with the amazing Charlton Heston, and William Wyler did this, made this incredible movie, which was actually the third time they'd made Ben-Hur, then. And I remember as a kid just sort of falling in love because it was the first time, I'd seen such a spectacle, this sort of epic, the size, the scale, and Heston's performance. It was, one of those sort of transformative moments where you realize, well, this is why I want to do what I'm doing now. That was sort of that moment, and it happened at a very young age. And then I got told they were making Ben-Hur, and probably like everybody else, I was like, really? And then I read the script, and John Ridley wrote the script, who's one of the great screenwriters, Keith Clark, and I realized very quickly that this wasn't a remake of the '59 version of Ben-Hur. This was a complete reimagining of actually Lew Wallace's novel that was written over 130 years ago. So for the fourth time on the big screen, basically, we're still talking about this amazing story. And if very quickly I sort of realized that, because it was a reimagining, there was a very different message to the movie, and the character was very different. And I love characters. It's my favorite thing to delve deep into a character. And although, you watch the trailers of these things and they show you one thing, but, this at its heart, at its core, is a character piece. And it's so beautiful because of that, because everything happens of it, the action, everything is a byproduct of the characters and the character stories. It's a really beautiful picture.
I mean, the cinematography aside, which is spectacular, what was the message of this movie as opposed to the predecessor? I can never pronounce that word correctly.
Well, the 59 version was mainly driven by revenge. It was a revenge story. And this, while staying true to the book and the story, it is a revenge story, but it's also a story about forgiveness and a story about hope and redemption and love. And, you know, without meaning to sound corny when I say that, but when I read this script, I was very aware of the world we live in today. And funnily enough, the script and the story seems so relevant because even though it's set 2,000 years ago, you know, we're still in a political war, in a religious war. There's so much hatred and fear and
Retaliation.
yeah, going on in the world. And it's, you know, every time you turn on the news, it's, you know, someone who's, you know, self-radicalized or, you know, people just, you know, sort of drumming this message of fear. And, you know, the sort of beautiful thing about a movie like this is, you know, like I said in the beginning, I love movies. I love everything about it, both sides of the camera, the whole sort of inception of something, how you create it, how you bring it to the big screen or the small screen, television included, everything. And I also know how transformative it can be experiencing a movie. And, you know, if I watch a movie, you know, ever since I was a kid about a great artist, I want to go and paint. Or if I watch a movie about a great writer, it makes me think I'm suddenly a writer and I go and write something. So in that sense, if you watch one of these movies and this with a message, and I happily say that, you know, with a message of there is another way, there is this sort of underlying, there's another road or another path that you can go all the way one way, and you can be so driven with this sort of crippling sense of hatred and anger. But there's something so liberating almost to have that rock lifted from your back, those chains, and suddenly realize that actually it's so much easier to love than hate. And, you know, that to me, you know, I don't think you have to be any way religiously inclined or, you know, faith-driven, whatever it is, what people try to sell it. I just think that's just human, and it's like the good way.
I mean, when you read about it, hatred is actually an active emotion. Like, it takes energy versus love is, it's just, you know, it's what we all want. And I wanted to ask you, this movie is very character-driven, but let's face it, he is a massive, massive historical figure.
Yeah.
So how do you approach playing someone like that, and how do you humanize him?
Yeah, you just said it, humanize him. It's such an interesting way, because, you know, like the 59 version, which, you know, I say Charlton Heston's performance won an Oscar. It was so incredible. But, you know, in 59, and you watch the movie, it's the most incredible sort of experience. And I realized today with a modern audience, and then we did the research, like over 80% of people haven't actually seen the 59 version. And, you know, there was a very different period then for acting. Acting was quite theatrical, quite operatic. It was the style back then. And I felt the need almost to portray this character in a rather, like you said, to sort of humanize it, to bring him sort of to a modern audience who might not necessarily relate to the different times they did, you know, that they made this movie. So, you know, like when you look at someone as incredible as Charlton Heston, he was such a man's man. You come into the story, and it comes in, and the whole story is very different. But when you meet them, he's very powerful. He's got this, you know, they have the thing with the, you know, with the spears, and they're sort of already like challenging each other, and it's like this amazing journey. But it's like this, like from the beginning, it's like this instant rivalry that's there. Underneath it all. I'm going to sort of do a backstory on this. I actually initially went in for the role of Masala, and I sat down with Timur Begmambetov, our amazing director, who's just a beautiful mind and soul, just a sweetheart. And we talked for hours, and he just wrote notes. And I was talking about Masala, and then I auditioned for Masala a few times. And then I get a phone call, and they say, how about trying for Judah, which I was convinced I'd never get. So I was like, well, does that mean I'm not going to get Masala? And they were like, yeah, probably, but, take a shot, man. And so I took a shot and luckily got it. But what I loved what Timur said to me was my passion for Masala was one of the main reasons why he thought I was right for Judah, because the love between these two brothers has to be so deep and so connected that I almost, by going in and having all these ideas about Masala, gave me this love and understanding of my brother that made him see Judah in me, because he wanted the two brothers to feel that way about each other, which I thought was really beautiful. And because of the story and what happens, it still has to be driven. If you don't believe that these guys truly had that deepest of all connections, then everything that happens to him wouldn't make a difference. And we went through it on this. I mean, like, I lost 30 pounds to play the slave when I'm, in the galley of a slave ship. We learned every time you see us with those horses, that's us with those horses. It was one of those. It was a 6-month shoot, and it was brutal, but sort of amazingly transcendent almost, because I learned more about.
Well, and also you see it translated where it's not CGI. I mean, you actually see you guys going through these very tough. I mean, let's talk about the fight scenes and everything you go through. What was production like?
Well, when you think about Ben-Hur, whether you've seen it or not, you think about chariots. Just like it's sort of like par for the course.
Which is really not a skill that I think most people have.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, not like you go to college to learn how to drive a chariot.
Yeah, no, I mean, exactly that was the thing. And I've ridden horses for, all my life, and I feel very comfortable with horses. But that doesn't prepare you in any way for a chariot.
Yes.
Yeah, so there was sort of like quite a rigorous training process that was about 4 months before we started shooting the chariot scene, 3 months before we started shooting the chariot scene, where we started on a seated cart with 2 horses, then 4 horses on a seated cart, then 2 horses on a standing chariot, finally 4 horses on a standing chariot, and that's something else.
What does it feel like when you're
it's a rush.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it's incredible. It is incredible. And like you said, when in life do you get the opportunity to do that? So, I mean, I love doing that kind of stuff. It's like the funnest part about this job is like you actually get to experience something that never in your life would you ever get this experience. So me and Toby, we're pretty sort of school chariot racers now. But it was beautiful because, like I was saying about the old version, we knew that was such an important moment in cinema history, that chariot race, and so beloved by all of us and everyone on the set as well. So it was done with such a beautiful ode to, or an homage, you know what I mean? Like, we knew we had to do the best possible job. We shot that 6 weeks with first unit, 6 weeks with second unit. So about 3 months just shooting that chariot race. And every time you see us with those horses, that's us with those horses. There was no CGI within the race. I mean, if a horse got injured, that is the only time they would implement CGI or effects. And then building up the stadium. But they built the arena to scale. And, we were going around that 32 horses sometimes at a time, like weaving in and out. It was insane. Yeah, no, it's like everyone wasn't like, they were like, yeah, this is dangerous. This isn't like, oh, you're okay, you're an actor. They were like, yeah, no, you could die. So, watch out.
Well, so if there was a chariot Olympics, you would win. Is what you're saying. You were Toby. Actually,
I think I'm the only one who's be able to do it these days. No, we did have the most amazing team of people around us. So luckily, well, we were talking about it. I was just in Brazil promoting Ben-Hur, and we had such an amazing reception from people there who saw the movie and just like flipped out over it, which was so beautiful. And we were talking about the Olympics starting. Tonight is the opening ceremony, which is pretty cool. But, chariots was sort of the original sport, the original Olympic sport or blood sport, It's nuts, yeah. So, and it's sort of surprising they're not in there. I think probably because of the risk of I mean, the amount
Being
of...
stomped to death, probably.
Yes, of the horses and the humans.
What was, in terms of the chariot, what was the toughest part for you? Was it staying put?
Well, I mean, the chariot is, Timur did, like, amazing research, and a lot of the research was on YouTube, looking at NASCAR, looking at certain things like that. Like everything, Timur's amazing about the research he does, and he was very aware that he wanted to bring this to a modern audience, and a modern audience who is sort of so used to now, which is so bizarre, of seeing the most incredible effects and seeing the most, beautiful CGI, and now we're seeing cars turn into robots and people living on different planets, and it's it's the beauty of cinema. But he said in this, you almost want to completely reverse that and go the other way, because if the audience, audiences are really smart, and they, today's audiences, and they're always looking for something. What are we going to, like me too. I love going to the cinema. I love going for new experiences. So he was like, for an audience, if there was even a moment that they felt like you weren't on those chariots, you'd lose them instantly because of the history of the previous race. So we had to do everything, and it was imperative that, we were on those doing it. And it's like standing on one of those things going round. You're going so fast, you don't turn corners, you drift around the corners. And it's the first day you assume you're going to be dead by lunch.
Then once you make it through lunch, you're like, okay, I got this till dinner.
It's basically after the first day. I said it was this amazing sort of meditative state you go into, because in life, we are always asking ourselves questions. We're doubting ourselves. We're sort of always in conversations with ourselves. And because of the absolute intensity of that race and being on those chariots, for those few seconds when you're tearing around that track, you're not thinking about anything. And there's something beautiful about not thinking about anything and being completely focused on the task at hand. You sort of become a little addicted to it. So, it was an amazing experience.
And I wanted to kind of segue from this and ask you about two other movies that you've completed, which sound incredible, starting with The Yellow Birds with Jennifer Aniston. So you said you just saw it. Talk to me about that. Yeah,
it's a beautiful film. It's a book written by Kevin Powers, who actually, it was adapted, and it had a sort of like long time coming to the big screen. I think it went through a few different hands, and luckily enough, it finally came to me, and I was so taken by the story, because it was written by, Kevin Powers. He was a vet. He's an army vet, and it's got Alden Ehrenreich, Han Solo, about to be, and Ty Sheridan, who's just such a beautiful young actor, and as you said, Jennifer Aniston and Toni Collette, and my grandfather actually put it best. He he made a couple of documentaries, one during World War II and one post. One was about postpartum. What would it be called? PTSD, stress disorder.
PTSD,
post-traumatic stress disorder, exactly, PTSD. And it was banned in the USA. And the reason for banning it, they said, was it wasn't pro-war, which he said, well, if I ever make a pro-war film, I expect someone to take me outside and shoot me.
That's kind of an appropriate response.
So, in that sense, and I've always sort of held that rather close to me, because I said, I don't want to be a part of something that glorifies war. And I read this, and for the first, well, not the first time, because there's been some beautiful pictures about war, but the first time I'd read a script where I said, in no way does this glorify war. It gives you a very brutal but very honest depiction of the current war and what these kids are getting into, and it's sort of heartbreaking, and I mean, I play a character who's a staff sergeant who's basically loses his mind. I've got a shaved head, covered in tattoos from deep Texas and stuff. It's, yeah, so I was playing myself, basically.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So it must have been super easy between this and the Yellow Bird.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Jumping in between. But that's the fun, man. I love, you know, my favorite thing is playing these characters. And, you know, like Judah, it's, you know, I think you're hard-pressed to find a better character than Judah Ben-Hur. And same, you know, with Staff Sergeant Sterling. He was one of those great characters that you come across and you're like, I need to play him. I don't, you know, I have to play him. This is like suddenly something starts creeping up inside of you, you know?
And what about Lona Scherfig?
Oh, she's fantastic. Lona Scherfig, she most people would know her from her movie An Education. And wonderful, very sympathetic, very just real director who is about the human emotion. And that was a film, I think it's called Their Finest now. It's gone through a few different names. And
That's another war movie.
it is. That's actually during. I don't know. I got to get castings. I know. Apparently, I'm just in constant battles. Yeah. No, it was. Yeah, but that was great. Gemma Arterton, who's so great, such a beautiful actress. I mean, wow. She's one of those people. You know, I remember I worked with Jennifer Lawrence, and they're a couple of people like Gemma Arterton and Jennifer Lawrence. They're the kind of people who you sort of sit back and say, "Oh, wow, that's just in you. You're just made to do this." They're beautiful to watch, and it's got a great cast of people: Bill Nye and Sam Claflin, and you know, a bunch of cool people. So that's an exciting movie.
And I mean, you come from an acting family. Did you always feel that this was where you were going?
Yeah, I grew up in England, so it was so sort of bizarre that, you know, my last name in England doesn't really mean anything like it does over here. So I found myself on stage at a very young age. Actually, the truth is, my sister went to dance class, and my mum obviously wanted some time on her own, so she put me in an all-girls dance class.
Wait, how old were you? That's amazing.
I was really young. I was like 3 or 4.
So way too young to appreciate it.
So yeah, I know. Everyone says, oh, I was in Peter Pan. The truth is, I was in an all-girls dance class. But luckily, being the only boy, I got all the parts. So, yeah.
I kind of love your mom.
It was. No, it was
That's
hysterical. It was like an
idea.
after-school activity. So I was the only boy, and literally, the male lead went to me every time. Just through default, I was the only boy. So I think I got a taste of what it's like around then.
Oh my God, I love your mom. And now to
Yeah.
our audience, please.
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I wanted to ask, what was it like working with Morgan Freeman, since we've seen him in a lot of other movies? And also, after we're done, would you mind taking a picture of the three of us? We came all the way from Virginia to see you.
Oh, of course I will. You kidding? That's so sweet
Thank
of you.
you.
Amazing. You're here from Virginia. Beautiful place. Morgan Freeman. God, I put it in this way. So you know that old saying of like never meet your idols. Meet your idols, because he's one of mine, and like 10 times better. He was like just one of the most lovely human beings, but one of those people who, first of all, his voice precedes him. You hear his voice,
I was about to
and
say,
you're like,
you must have just closed your eyes and
I
listened to the
know.
voice.
It's like amazing, that voice, and you sort of approach and you realize he's just wonderful, like just grounded and cool, and loves what he's doing. And I love what I'm doing. I get all excited when I'm on a set. I'm not like, oh, I'm an actor. I'm pretty giddy every day on the set because I think I love it and it's fun. So you know, it's nice to be with someone and someone who brought laughter and enjoyment to something. And it's so nice when you're like me, who's sort of like looking in awe at Morgan Freeman, and they're just giving you everything. And just a true, honest to God human being.
And next question, please.
How's it going, Jack?
Good, thanks, man. How are you?
Good. So you talked about that it took you about it was like a 6-month shoot. So was it hard for you to get out of character afterwards?
God, it's interesting because I say I'm a character actor. I'm not method, but inadvertently you become method. And my girlfriend and my daughter and everyone who have to live with me when the cameras aren't rolling, which I'm sure is insane. these things, when you're in it every day and you're working every day, and I am always working when I'm working, like, you know, and inadvertently it starts sort of rubbing off on you. So more than it's staying with me, I miss him a bit when I leave the characters. Like Richard Harrow from Boardwalk, I miss a lot. Like because I did that for 4 years, and 4 years of living with the characters, like an exploration into the human soul, because you're like, they sort of become a part of you in a weird way. So, you know, it's you know, that it's a good question, because, you know, you think back fondly, and some parts, when they're very tough on you, are quite hard to let go.
Which was your girlfriend's favorite person to live with? Favorite character to live with?
I don't think she has one. I don't know. You know what, Richard Harrow, it would be. Because Richard, I was so grounded. I think I got to know him so well that sort of I could come home and, as much as people love to think of Richard Harrow as a sociopath, who, like, you know, this cold-blooded killer, I adore him. I loved him so much, and I had this. He was such a sort of, and there was a sort of, when I mean this in the nicest way, a confidence of working on a character for 4 years, because you begin to know him better and better and better. So you're not coming home after every take like every mad actor and going, "Oh, I could have done this, could have done that. Oh, geez, oh." Instead, you sort of come home and there's a peace that comes along with it. So I think I found my most peaceful moments when I was working on Boardwalk.
Oddly.
Yeah, bizarrely.
And last question, please.
I loved Richard too. And I was just wondering, what was a bigger physical challenge, all of the battle scenes and horse work in this, or working around that mask?
You know what? There were moments when we were shooting Boardwalk in the height of the New York summer, which, as everyone knows, is pretty intense, where we were shooting winter and summer. So I'd be wearing, you know, not only like, you know, suits and overcoats and hats, but the mask. So I was sort of getting a sauna on one side of my face at most times. So that was pretty rough, but nothing would quite be like the training for this one behind me. This was brutal, amazing. But, you know, that's the best part. The bit is putting yourself through it. They give you the best rewards, and then, you know, I see this movie now, you know, Ben-Hur, and I'm so unbelievably proud of it and what we accomplished. And you know, it's a special one, because if I hadn't put myself through it and done all those things, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here happily talking to you about it again. Yeah, so that's cool.
And when can we see it?
August 19th. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.